My speech is basically, I was trying to think about what is my passion, what is my dream, and I have quite a few, but in terms of what I've been doing for well, I won't say how many years, but for many, many years now, basically it's been a combination of education and business. And I've been trying to work in both these fields, and sometimes these fields are considered somewhat antagonistic, education being a very noble pursuit, business increasingly getting a bad rap, certainly post-crisis. And indeed, I'm responsible for business education. So I was going to talk about business and education. And both have undergone radical change in the past few years, and it's nowhere near ending. These are two major activities which, of course, have a major impact on economies, on social structures, on overall well-being. And there have been major, major changes taking place. My colleague Michelle mentioned MOOCs. Certainly they are a way to look at the democratization of education. Anyone, anywhere can access education, can learn about statistics, if they're so inclined, or math. So certainly great promise for MOOCs. And yet, if we look at the actual results, not so good. Certainly for, let's say, the humanistic subjects, okay, the humanities. Sebastian Trun was one of the founders of a major MOOC, Massive Open Online Course, which is what MOOC stands for. And he basically decided it was a lousy product, and he's the one who invested time, energy, will to build this product. And basically, it seems that students who follow these courses do not learn as much, do not learn as well, do not learn as long as those who are in an environment where there's human interaction. So that human interaction element is an important element, and I think that's something we see happening in business as well. So from democratization and digitalization of education, there's a trend going towards humanization, my little word there, of education, and especially of business education. And this has several connotations, so bear with me. A recent Carnegie Foundation report, Carnegie Foundation does many reports looking at the, shall we say, the evolution of higher education. And back in the 60s and 70s, they were emphasizing the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and math. Most recently, they're emphasizing the humanities, saying business schools also have to train students to the role of humanities. They have to expose students to the humanities. What is it? Very quickly. It's all about human culture. Human culture, music, literature, philosophy. It's about what makes us human. It's what alerts us and arouses in us a passion for the human condition and all that we are capable of doing, to rise us to a higher level of being. And is that really important? What has it got to do with business, right? I mean, humanities, literature, philosophy, history. Increasingly in business as well, although business is about the nuts and bolts of making money, and even ethically and socially responsible businesses have to make money, have to make a profit, of course. You know, humanities, it's all about thinking about the beauty that can come from mankind as well. And I think we can say that in today's world, a world which has been racked by the crisis, which no one ever saw coming, right? It hit us all like a tsunami, 2008, 2009. Maybe one or two economists somewhere in the world said, hey guys, something's wrong here. But we were all very happy going along, believing the same answers we had had for several generations, and there would be endless growth. And we really weren't asking the right questions, and we thought we could get the answers in textbooks. And this little quote from Albert Einstein basically talks about the value of humanities in terms of training our minds to think in a way that we learn something without having to refer to textbooks, because you can't find answers in textbooks anymore. And I hesitate saying that because I am the director of an MBA program and an executive MBA program. Textbooks are there to provide certain skills, but the answers are not there, not anymore. So the humanities is a way of training the mind. More recently, Steve Jobs, much regretted Steve Jobs, also had a word about humanities, because humanities also allow us all to be aware of different things, to have different perceptions, to see things differently, to look for something unusual. And as you can see, it's technology married with liberal arts, with the humanities, that yields us the result that makes our hearts sing. So a consummate businessman on the one side, eminent scientist on the other, both attesting to the value of the humanities. But I don't want to talk much about the humanities per se. What I want to talk more about is, as Alicia mentioned, the human side of business, the human dimension of business. And I don't mean this in the sense of HR policies, although of course they are important. How companies treat their employees, how they motivate them, how they empower them and encourage them is vitally important. It's been shown in numerous research reports that the more empowered and the more encouraged and the more valorized employees are, the more successful the company will be. And it's common sense, really. But the human dimension in business is something I'd like to tackle from a slightly different perspective, which is related to some of the cases I've done. And as been mentioned, I've written quite a few, too many to count. And I found that there's a certain trait that can be seen in any kind of company, any kind of sector. And it's a shared trait which I see amongst the best firms. And again, this is based on, more than 20 years right now of researching, dealing with companies, meeting with company executives, and trying to understand what makes them continue to grow, what makes them thrive, even in highly competitive environments. And I've seen it in companies ranging from an industrial manufacturer of ball bearings, now that's really B2B industry, online retailers, and of course, this being the Côte d'Azur, this being Monaco, the luxury sector is certainly something we can also focus on. So what could this shared trait be in terms of companies that have continued to do well despite the odds, despite hyper-competition, despite the crisis? Let's start with the ball bearings. Major Swedish company. I don't know if you all know ball bearings. These are industrial products that go into other products. They go into machines, they go into automobiles, they go into vehicles. They allow rotation, frictionless rotation. So anything which requires movement, anything industrial which requires movement, requires bearings. Very nice company, invented the industry, had done well for many, many years, started at the beginning of the 20th century in tandem with the growth of industrialization, mass production, mass consumption, and sold bearings around the world, and everything was fine, hunky-dory, until, as it always will happen, competition enters. And it entered in the 80s and 90s. It was a long time. There are certain barriers to entry for this kind of, shall we say, sector. And it was a worse kind of competition for a Swedish company because it came from Asia. And of course, Asian competition is based on price. And if you're dealing with something like a bearing, which is basically a steel commodity, price is a differentiator, maybe the key differentiator. So you have a price, shall we say, focused competitor entering your market space, and you're a Swedish company, it really is curtains. And what did this company do? Well, they decided, well, we have to focus on the market. But I'm not talking about the market in terms of marketing and marketing strategy. They actually went and they tried to understand who are the users of the bearings at the very end of the bearings' existence. So not just in the original equipment manufacturers, but also down to the little garages in Europe, which also need to buy bearings in order to service their clients, down to the small factories across Europe, which need bearings to ensure that their machines are running. And the company had never done this before. They wanted to see what is the experience of garages, this little small business garage when it comes to bearings, and what is the experience of a factory owner, small factory somewhere in Italy, in Spain, when bearings came into, shall we say, when bearings became problematic, when they weren't working properly. And the implications, once they went there and saw what was going on, and the amount of downtime that was being caused, and the costs that were incurring to the factories, and the lost opportunities to the garages, they totally redesigned their business model, starting from that end user backwards, looking at all of the points of hassle, all of the points of discomfort, even of panic, because a factory in downtime is a very unpleasant place to be. And then they redesigned their entire offering, moving away from simply selling bearings to providing a hassle-free experience for these customers, a solution which was basically a set of services and products. Online retailer. Many of us think online retailing is all about it's just a new channel to sell stuff. Well, the firms that look at online retailing in that respect, in fact, don't do that well, and many of them have folded. The one company which has continued to thrive and do well when it comes to online retailing is, of course, Amazon. And many years back, when it was still a startup, I did some research with Amazon and Bezos and wrote a case study. And the focus of Bezos from the very beginning was not just let's sell stuff on the net. He was starting from the user again, from the human being. How can we help people find the right books, buy the right books? So starting again from that human element and looking at the experience customers have when it comes to purchasing, to finding, to repurchasing. And his mantra has always been, and this was 10 years ago when he said this, we know 2% of what we'll know now, 10 years later. But it's all about personalization. How can we constantly try to make the customer experience a better experience? How can we try to identify the hassles that people have and eliminate them? Okay, ladies, I know that sometimes when we get packages and in our eagerness to open the packages are so difficult to open, break our nails, etc. Well, he's initiated easy packaging. So it's very easy, you might have noticed this, to actually unwrap your package. And he's even worked with the electrical suppliers who provide such things as cables and toner in these hermetically sealed plastic clamshell boxes, which you need an ice pick to open. He's enforced all his suppliers on Amazon to make that packaging easy to open. They can do whatever they want for other retailers, but for Amazon, it has to be easy to open. It's a point of experience for the customer, and it either makes or breaks the total experience. And again, the way he looks at it, customers are guests, and the role of the host is to always think about how can we make every little bit of customer experience a little bit better. So looking always not at what are we making, selling, producing, distributing, but looking at that human element. How can we make that experience better? So the common traits so far in terms of what we've seen. Well, great experiences come from great services. And today's world, you might have heard it, those who have followed some of the recent literature, is an experience economy. Increasingly, we as customers, whether we're in the B2B realm, whether we are consumers, we're not so much buying things as trying to have experiences. There are too many things around. Everything's become a commodity. And the best companies are those that are constantly trying to think, how can we make the experience for the individual, for the human being, whether that individual is in a purchasing position in a company or whether it's consuming something in a store or online, how to make that experience better. And this comes, again, from great services. And great services come from, well, human interactions. We go back to the human element. We go back to the importance, from a managerial perspective, of understanding how important it is for your employees to be valorized, motivated, encouraged, and empowered, because they are the ones who are interacting with your customers. And each interaction creates an experience, and any bad interaction creates a negative experience and probably a lost customer. And in today's world, no one can afford to lose customers. Several years back, no problem. Today's world, no one can afford to lose customers. So each little interaction becomes vital. And one sector really understands the importance of interactions, the importance of experience, the importance of how to make customers feel, understand it better than any other. And again, as I said, it is the luxury sector. For a variety of reasons. We can be rather flippant and glib about it and say, well, if you're going into a shop and buying a bag for 8,000 euros, you certainly would expect to be treated well, because if you're treated poorly, you might not buy the bag, but that experience remains with you. And every time you look at the bag, even if you've desired it and coveted it all your life, you will think of that bad experience. So it's all about creating an exceptional experience. And we see this happening as well in terms of what's going on in the luxury sector, because we've been studying the luxury sector quite intensively. First of all, just one little quote from a French philosopher. And you can take it or leave it, but for this particular French philosopher, luxury is the only thing which really separates mankind from the animals, because we pursue luxury. Completely unnecessary, theoretically. Animals will not be interested in it. So this was his great intellectual contribution about luxury. But I think, again, luxury is something which is there to make each individual feel special. And it's not really about money. It's about an experience which is unique, which is yours and yours alone. And we see that this is what people who can afford to spend enormous amounts of money are also beginning to realize. So we see this impressive figure of the personal luxury goods market. These are basically your branded products, bags, scarves, shoes, worth a staggering $390 billion. It's a lot. Luxury experiences market is worth 1 trillion, and it is continuing to grow. So why is this happening? Because all of us basically want to feel special, a special experience, something which you experience is something which is yours alone. You won't see someone else wearing it, driving it. It's yours. It's unique. And more importantly than anything else, it stays with you forever. Because the irony in any kind of experience is that it is ephemeral, it's evanescent, it happens in an instant and then it's gone. It doesn't last. Except it does last. It lasts up here and in our hearts. And it can make all the difference to our lives. And I have this little phrase, let us stay with you. One of the well-known hotel chains, luxury hotel chains, came up with this nice little, shall we say, pun, as opposed to come stay with us, let us stay with you, because their whole business model now is to create the kinds of unique, unforgettable experiences which will stay with you forever and ever. And what kind of a brand power is that? So, to conclude, the research that I've done, and what I'm also trying to ensure my students pick up as well, is that the best organizations, I think we can all agree, are not necessarily the biggest ones. In fact, that's rarely, shall we say, a corollary between being best. The best organizations are those that can see the big picture, yes, they see what's happening, they're able to anticipate what's happening, not only see the big picture, but also bring on the next big thing, whatever it may be, in whatever domain it may be, from R&D to pharmaceuticals, to education, to electronics, etc. But they're able to do this because they're constantly focusing on that human element, on that one person's life somewhere that they could somehow enhance or make better. And this is one of the common traits that I've found in the research over the years, again, from any kind of company you like, in any kind of sector. This is really what differentiates the winners from the losers. It's not about how much you make and sell, it's about how well you can focus on who's ultimately using and ideally benefiting from what it is you're offering. So I will conclude once again with our friend Albert and say, remember your humanity and forget the rest. And I think that's something that we can all try to focus on. Okay? Thank you very much.